Hi, this is Isha Fikri, and today I'm going to present on you about visual perceptual problems. So let's go. In this topic, I would like to discuss four things, which is the first one is visual receptive function, and then followed by visual connective function, and then diagnosis with problem in visual perceptions, and also last but not least is effects of visual perceptual problems on performance and concentration. So let's go. Visual receptive function. To make it easier to understand, visual receptive function is a process to gather information from the surrounding. It could be for visual, it could be to find out what image that we are seeing right now in front of our eyes. That is the input that we need for visual receptive function. So what happens if visual receptive function has problems? So with visual dysfunction have difficulty meeting behavioral demands such as sitting still, sustaining attention, and completing their works. If they have problem with visual receptive function, how can they even give attention to the surrounding? And if, that's why when it comes to sitting, still they still need to have that visual receptive function better to be able to sit longer. And then individuals with functional vision problem exhibits this type of thing, which is difficulty to complete school tasks in timely manner, visual fatigue, and also avoidance of reading work, which is important for parents to always observe your kids, especially when it comes to they doing their school works, or even for example showing cute images and maybe they'll be like, I don't know what am I seeing. So that's an example of it. So the second, and then we come with the refractive error. So refractive error is common. It's very common among students with developmental disorder. It's most likely refractive error is about blurry vision. Blurry vision. So what happens if we have blurry vision? So we cannot see things clearly. So accommodation takes longer time, as where words appear blurry and tend to lose their place, missing important information and understanding. This is one example, refractive error. And when it comes to motor fusion and sensory fusion have not met, it will be impossible to create one image becoming fusion of binocular, as when we have two eyes, right? So this is called binocular fusion, bi, which is two. So it is if they have problem with visual receptive function, how can they even make the image become one clear form instead of two images on one on the left and one on the right, as an example of it. So yeah, and then next we go with visual cognitive function. As you can see, I want to talk about three things, which is attention, memory, and visual discrimination. Just to clarify, that visual cognitive function is also part of process with visual receptive function, but this time visual cognitive function helps to as is a process to help you to organize, to restructure the information you get, and then give meaning to what you have seen. For example, maybe I am seeing these black things on my hands, and then after organize and restructuring, this is a clock. So that's an example of it. So for attention, under attentive may have difficulty to concentrate, and then they can be seen fatigue easily. So if they have problem with that, how can they even give attention? And because of that, they can be very, very fatigue, tired because of visual perception problem. So next is memory. Poor ability to recognize or retrieve visual information and to store information, because we have short-term and memory term, right? So if they have problem with this, how can they even store in short-term storage and long-term storage to, for example, as easy as do you know your aunt's name? Or for example, that's an example of it, or visual. Which one is your Anlinda? Point out, point out. Maybe they forgot because of a visual perception problem. They cannot see clearly. Who am I seeing right now? Is this Alida or Uncle Faye? That's an example. And then visual discrimination. Poor discrimination leads to impaired ability to recognize, match, and categorize. So is it important for them to have this visual discrimination? Yes. So how can you discriminate your favorite Starbucks drink from all these Starbucks drink orders that being clumped together? So this is an example of it. So you recognize that that is yours and match to your memory. And then there are two things under visual discrimination, which is object vision and spatial vision. So for object vision, I would like to talk about two things, which is form constancy and visual closure. So for form constancy is the ability for them to recognize form or object regardless of being changed through environment or form or object or shape. For example, I can identify that this is L, and then I can see another L over there despite different shape. I know that it is in the same form regardless, even in a different environment. So what happens if they have poor form consistency? So they have difficulty to recognize form when presented differently. Can you imagine children go to school, once written on the blackboard F, they know it's an F, but in the textbook they couldn't recognize this is F also because they thought it was different. So yes. And then what about poor visual closure? So visual closure is the ability for people to make a summary of an information even presented to them is incomplete. For example, of the activity will be puzzle. Even we don't complete the puzzle yet, we know that at the end of the product will be the shape of that puzzle. For example, the cat. Even we do it halfway, we know that it's gonna look like a cat. So what happens if we don't have these children have poor visual closure, so unable to identify the form if it is complete. So it's hard for them to identify that is this an apple even from a half side or whatnot. So and then next is spatial vision, which is two things I want to talk about is position in space difficulty and also decrease that perception. So spatial vision would be how we can see ability to discriminate ourselves from the space around us, from this ruang, contoh ruangan dalam bilik ni, how can I identify how far away I am from this wall? So yes, position in space difficulty equals to trouble discriminating among objects. So as I have picked an example before, how can you discriminate that is your Starbucks drinks from all those Starbucks orders that have been clumped together, right? So if you have this position in space difficulty problem, so it's for example for the kids, if we clump out all those alphabet together, they cannot discriminate where is actually the word F. If I point out, can you help me find F? Yes, teacher, F is here. Or macam, teacher, I couldn't find the F. I cannot see. So that is the spatial vision. Another part is decreased depth perception, affecting child's ability to walk through space. Not just walk, even in, for example, fine motor skills. When you thought that you want to put this cube shape into the box, you thought it's already in, but it's not. It's just halfway through, but it's not completely in because their perception thinks like, oh, it's enough. It doesn't have space at the back. So this is one of the things when it comes to visual discrimination that will be affected. So next is diagnosis with problem in visual perception. Actually, there's a lot of diagnoses when it comes to visual problem. One of the very famous one would be dyslexia. As you can see, dyslexia is inability to read letter because of the word D seems upside down, the word P seems left side, and B seems upside down, and etc. etc. That's an example of it. So I want to focus on these three, which is severe refractive error, retinopathy of prematurity, and visual disorder. So severe refractive error, as I mentioned before, is a blurry vision, which is very common. But if it's not treated, it would affect them until they grow up. For example, blurry vision, and then it could cause visual impairment. Imagine the blurry vision you cannot see from the whiteboard or the textbook. How can they even write? How can they even know if that is a B? So that's an example of it. And then retinopathy of prematurity or ROP, which is cause of blindness in preterm infant. Or kita boleh katakan dengan cara lain, which is bayi cukup bulan, retinopathy of prematurity (RP). It's also very it's a common disorder as well, common among infant, but also this could also affect them when they are growing up. They could not see who is my caregiver, who is my caregiver, where is my caregiver, what is this toy that am I holding right now. So that's an example of it. And vision disorder, there are so many visual disorders such as astigmatism, extreme myopia, strabismus, amblyopia. So some far-sightedness and near-sightedness and all that, blurry vision, seeing colors, or seeing two colors at once, for example. So could be very dangerous if it's not treated, if it's left untreated. So yes. Next is I want to talk about the effects of visual perceptual problems on performance and occupation. So let's start with the first one is reading. So directionality confusion is equal to weak registration in visual memory, causing delay in contradiction of sight vocabulary problem. So yes, when it comes to reading, we need to understand where our eye goes, where to read from left to right or right to left, from up to down or down to up. So if they have problem with visual perception problem, it would affect them in terms of reading. How can they even know, like, where am I reading, left to right or right to left? This is where directionality comes in. It becomes confused. It became confused in terms of directionality. So yes, so how can they even read a book or just make it to read one sentence if they don't even know where is the direction going, to left to right or right to left. And then next is spelling. Spelling skills depend on visual recognition or visual imagery ability. Although here's the thing, in the research people say that there is nothing in relationship between visual perceptual problems and also spelling, but also they suggest that spelling skills depend on visual recognition or visual imagery ability. So to be able to imagine how does the word cat looks like, and then to be able to spell it. For example, I can visualize the word CAT floating in my mind. So that's an example of a visual imagery. So if it's impacted, it does impact on their spelling skills. So maybe they thought the spelling of a cat should be CAD instead of CAT. That's an example of it. Next is handwriting and visual motor integration. As you can see that if you want to write, you need to see where are you writing. And so yes, visual spatial problems affect child's handwriting. So if they have visual spatial problem when it comes to spacing, right? So how can they even, let's say, writing one sentence in a perfect straight line without taking too much of a space or having too little of a space? The space has to be in correct order, in correct order and correct space, so that they can see the word clearly. And because of that, if it affected, it does affect on the way they write. Maybe it's reverse D. They're supposed to write D, but they make it as a B because they thought it's a D, it's a reverse, or unable to identify from left to right. And then when it comes to mathematics, this is an interesting part because as you can see, the when it comes to do mathematics stuff, it is important for them to know how to actually align the numbers. How can, for example, 10 plus 1. We know that 0, and then plus is on the left, and then the number 1 is supposed to be under 0. They get 11, right? But if they have visual perception problem, they would align number 1 under 1. So instead of the 10 plus 1 equals to 11, they get 10 plus 1 equals to 20. So this can be seen a lot to children with visual perception problems. So if they have difficulty to align columns for calculation, answer will be incorrect due to alignment problem. And it does affect their grade and also their academical skills, especially mathematics. And what if it is left untreated? When they grow up, they tend to mistakenly calculate that, oh, I thought I have 20 ringgit in my wallet, but it's just 11 ringgit. So yes. So that's all from me. Thank you very much.